And for the first few breaths, I just want you to close your eyes and put your attention on your pelvis and just see where it is as it is. So you're not changing anything about it or shifting anything quite yet. You're just noticing where it is in space and how much of it's touching the floor, how much of it's not touching the floor. And then while it's here, see if you can tip the front of your pelvis up, or see if you can get the back of your pelvis a little closer to the floor so more of it's touching the floor to where you think it's about neutral. It might take a little bit of shifting around or feel like, I'm not even sure what neutral is supposed to feel like here. Just do the best you can. So some of the back of your pelvis, that bony plate right at the bottom of your spine will be touching. And then the top part of your pelvis, right where the bony parts of your hips are, will tip up towards your belly button. When you've got that and where you think is about neutral, take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale it through your mouth. Good. Another breath like that. Fill up all the way. Big exhale. Last one like that. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Then start to create your ujjayi breath here. A long inhale with a pause at the top. A long exhale with the pause at the bottom. It doesn't need to be super fiery right out of the gate, but there's an attention on it so that you create an intentional 4-part breath. If you feel like your pelvis is sliding a little bit out of neutral, just go back and make an adjustment, and then attention to the 4-part breath. As you're working on that breath, you can bring your knees back together, put your hands on the outsides of your knees and draw them together, then hug them into your chest. Rock around on your low back a little bit, give the lower back a massage. Make your way up to sit and find your downward facing dog, that upside down letter V shape. So as you're creating the down dog, you still have that awareness around your pelvis, right? So your tailbone is tipping up to where the wall and ceiling meet behind you, or up to the sky if you're practicing outside like Rebecca is. But that sense of the front of the pelvis coming up towards your belly button and the tailbone reaching up and back behind you. So there's lots of space on the front and back side of your body. Walk your feet up to your hands, ragdoll. So a different sensation here in the pelvis, right? The front of the pelvis way up towards your belly button so you can stretch open the space across your low back, maybe even up into the middle back if that tissue is particularly tight for you. Let your hands hang down towards the ground and swing your arms over to the left and stretch the right side of your body. So your fingertips might touch, or maybe you have your hands on a block on the outside of that left foot. And take it over to the other side. Stretch out the side of your body. All the while with the front of your pelvis. Lift up towards your belly button. Yeah, good adjustments. There's lots of movements happening already. I like it. Switch over to the right. One more time on the right. You can increase the stretch by softening your left knee a little bit and keeping the right leg straight. Switch sides. Walk it over. Maybe it's the right knee that bends and the left leg that straightens. Come on back to center. Press into both feet equally and rise all the way up to standing. Reach through your fingertips. Bring your thumbs to heart center. Set your intention for practice. The whole class will be focusing on that neutrality in your pelvis in each pose, but if you've got another thing you're working on, you can add that on too. But we'll send out those intentions with 3 ohms. Take a deep breath in. Inhale, reach up, extended mountain. Exhale, forward fold, drape to the floor. Halfway lift, pause on the halfway lift, either hands on your shins or your thighs. Lengthen out your spine. Point your tailbone straight back behind you so you've got that neutral pelvis while you're here in halfway lift. One more breath here together. High to low push-up. Plant your palms on the mat. You can drop your knees or step straight back. Upward facing dog. Open up your chest. Downward facing dog. Press back. We'll take 3 breaths here. Inhale. Big exhale. Good. Tailbone up and back. Breathe in. Breath out. Nice, Amanda. One more breath. Big exhale out. Look forward and move. Feet to hands. Halfway lift. Tailbone straight out behind you. Stretch. Forward fold. Rise to stand. Extended mountain lift up through the pit of your belly. All the way up to your fingertips. Forward fold. Halfway lift, lengthen, tailbone back. Good. High to low push-up or lower all the way to the mat. Upward facing dog, open your chest. Downward facing dog, press back. Take a full breath in together. Big exhale out. Breathe in. Press your thumbs down on your exhale. Yes, connect to the floor. One more breath. Empty to the pit of your belly. Get all the air out. Look forward and move. Feet to hands. Halfway lift. Tailbone straight back. Forward fold. Rise to stand. A long inhale. Look up. Forward fold. Halfway lift. Purposeful. Tailbone back. Spine long. High to low push up. Upward facing dog or cobra. Downward facing dog. Press back. 3 breaths together. In. Empty it out. Good. Keep that up. Breath in. Exhale. Tailbone way up and back. One more breath. Empty it completely. Move forward. Feet to hands. Halfway lift. Lengthen. Fold down. One more sun salutation A. Rise up to standing. Look up between your fingers. Forward fold. Halfway lift, long spine, pit of the belly in and up. High to low push-up. I saw that, Tori. Good work. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. 3 big breaths. In. Breath out. Can you knit your ribs together? Breathe in. Breath out. Tailbone up and back. Last one. Push all the air back out. Move forward, feet to hands. Halfway lift. Stick with the long spine. Good. Forward fold. Chair pose and stay. Sit way back into your hips. Here's a good place to work on the pelvis and the neutrality of the pelvis. So tailbone goes to where the back edge of your mat is. Pit of the belly lifts in and up. So that front of your pelvis stretches up the front side of your body. You've got one more breath here. Forward fold. Halfway lift. Long back. High to low push-up or lower to the floor. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Right side warrior 1. Step your right foot between your hands. You'll take a couple of breaths here, so take your time setting it up. Back edge of your back foot into the mat. Front of the pelvis up towards your belly button. So that might mean that you're bending your knee a little bit more on the back leg so that you can get your hips square. Front of the pelvis up. Nice, Jesse. Good adjustment. One more breath here together. High to low push-up. Take a big breath in upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Left side warrior 1. Step your left foot between your hands. Same attention to detail on this side. So once you've got the feet planted, front of the pelvis up, tailbone down. Nice adjustments, everybody. Sink your big toe mounds into the mat. Good. One more breath. High to low push up you go. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take a full breath in. Big exhale out. Breath in. Empty to the pit of your belly. One more. Fill up. Exhale completely. Make your way. Feet to hands. Halfway lift. Long flat back. Fold down. Chair pose and stay. Sit way back into the hips and keep the breath moving. Neutral pelvis. Tailbone straight to the back edge of your mat. Pit of the belly lifts in and up. Good adjustments. One more inhale. Forward fold. Halfway lift, tailbone straight back, high to low with your knees up or on the floor. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Right side warrior one. Just one breath this time. So plant your feet, lift the front of the pelvis and reach. High to low push up on your exhale. Big breath in up dog. Let it out in down dog. Left side warrior one. There's a sense of flow to it. Now let it match with your breath as you reach up, high to low. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take a full breath in together. Push the air back out. Yeah, let it be a clearing. Breathe in. Breath out. Last one. Empty completely. Move forward. Halfway lift. Lengthen. Good. Forward fold. Chair pose and stay. Give yourself the time you need to send your tailbone back and then lift the front of the pelvis. Nice, Kim. These good adjustments back and forth. One more breath. Forward fold. Halfway lift. That long flat back. Keep the work there. High to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Right side warrior one. Step through. Pit of the belly, way in and up to help lift the front of your pelvis. Good. Chaturanga, low push up. Up dog. Downward facing dog. Left side, step it through. Front of the pelvis like you've got a string on it. It pulls and lifts all the way up. Low push up or lower to the floor. Up dog. Downward facing dog. We'll make these breaths aside. Take a long inhale. Sigh it out. Good. Two more like that. In. Empty. One more. Push all the air out. Move forward, feet to hands. You've got one more sun salutation B. Halfway lift, tailbone straight back. Fold down. Chair pose and stay. Last time to get that settled in. Your hip creases deep down into your legs. Good. Breathe in. Forward fold. Halfway lift, tailbone straight back. High to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Right side warrior one. Biggest and best one yet on this side. Wake up your fingertips at the top. Beautiful. Chaturanga, hands to the mat. Upward facing. Downward facing. Left side warrior one. Biggest and best on this side. Feet connected, hands wide awake. Low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in. Empty it out. Breath in. Breath out. One more. Fill up. Big exhale. Send your right leg up to the sky. Bend your knee and open your hip. We're going to stick with the three-legged right here, but have a little bit of softness to your left knee, even if you're coming up onto your left toes. Up and away from the mat. Straighten your leg. Push your foot back down. Send your left leg up to the sky. Bend your knee and open your hip. Get as much space as you can. A long line of stretch from your left fingertips all the way up to that left knee. Straighten the leg, push your foot back down, send your right leg straight up and back. Long and straight behind you now, not open hips. So with closed hips, you've got both the hips facing the floor, and then all 5 toes facing the floor. Take a deep breath in here. Coil knee to nose. Hug your knee straight in and up. Good. Press the foot back. Inhale, lengthen. Knee to nose. Squeeze in and up. You're tucking the front of your pelvis in. Last time, press the foot back. Knee to nose, in and up, round like a tiny little ball. Then place the foot between your hands and bring your back knee to the floor. So it's a modified crescent lunge. Left knee on the ground, right foot on the ground. So you can start with your hands up on your thigh. And then with the back foot, you can either have those toes tucked or your foot flat, whatever feels more stable. Choose that one. All right, scoot your front foot forward enough that you start to get a stretch in the front of your left thigh. So it'll be different across the room and across the screen. So you find the sweet spot where you've got a stretch in front of that thigh. And then once you've got that stretch, lift the front of your pelvis up. Ooh. Yeah, so you may need to back off on the stretch as you're coming forward. Find the sweet spot where you've got a stretch in the front of the thigh and the front of the pelvis is lifting up strong towards your belly button. Keep those two pieces intact, hands up to the ceiling. Eyes on one spot, that one focal point. You can choose to stay here with your knee down or tuck your back toes and press up into full crescent lunge. So if you're pressing up into the full crescent lunge and you start to lose either the stretch in the thigh or the front of your pelvis is tipping forward, just make that adjustment. Front of the pelvis up. You may need a little bit of a bend in your back knee to make that happen. Nice work, virtual yogis. Take one more breath here. High to low push up you go. Hands to the mat. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Send your left leg straight up and back. Long leg with all of the toes facing down towards the floor. Take a long breath in together. Knee to nose. Coil in. Tuck the front of your pelvis up to your belly button. Good job. Press back. Inhale. Knee to nose. Pull in and round. Beautiful. Press up and back. Last one. Knee to nose. Hug it in up. Round. Place the foot between your hands. Crescent lunge. Back knee on the mat. So now you've got an idea where you're going. Hands on your thighs, and then you get yourself scooted forward enough until you feel the stretch in the front of your right thigh, right across the top of your hip. And then front of the pelvis, up towards your belly button. It might feel different from on the other side. This side might be tighter or a little bit more flexible. So find the sweet spot, the stretch across the front of your hip bone, front of the pelvis up to the belly button, then hands up to the sky. From here, add more breath. Yeah, make it a little bit lighter. Then you can stay with your back knee down or tuck the back toes and come up to full crescent lunge. So whichever one you're choosing, yes, good adjustments. Front of the pelvis up. Stretch across the front of your right thigh, front of your right thigh. One more breath here. Reach up tall, high to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take a full breath in together. Clear it out. Good. Breathe in. Breath out. One more. Push all the air back out. Move forward, feet to hands. Halfway lift, lengthen the spine, tailbone straight back. Beautiful. Forward fold, drape down. Chair pose, sit down nice and deep. So you know the drill. Creases of your hips way back towards your tailbone, way back to the back edge of the mat. Front of the pelvis up towards your belly button. Hands to heart, twist right. Resist the urge to let the front of your pelvis spill out over your thighs. You can keep your palms together or open your arms. Bottom arm can go between your knees or on the outside of your knee. Stay right here and breathe. You got it for 5, 4, fingertips awake, 3, 2, 1, forward fold. 2 fingers around your big toes. So you bend your knees as much as you need to get the grip on your toes, and then you can keep them hip width distance or take them mat width distance apart. So now that you've got things warmed up a little bit and there's some room to work with, maybe you can tip your tailbone higher up to the ceiling. Maybe you need to bend your knees a little bit more to give yourself space to tip your tailbone up to the ceiling. Release your grip. Step your feet mat width distance apart if they're not already there. Come down into a goddess squat. So you'll squat down between your feet. Feet are turned out to like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock on a clock face. Elbows on the insides of your knees. So for those of you who have your heels pretty high up in the air, you can take your legs a little wider, or you can roll up your mat and tuck it underneath your heels for some support. Okay, lift your chest up to your thumbs. Yes, instead of trying to bring your thumbs back toward your heart, heart up towards your thumbs instead. Good. Set your eyes on one spot. Even here, can you press your tailbone straight down to the mat? Instead of scooping it forward, can you send it straight down to the mat? 3 more breaths here together. Inhale. Big exhale out. Breath number 2, fill up. Exhale. Last one, fill up. Push all the air out. Fingertips on the floor, tailbone up to the sky, and walk your feet back, downward facing dog. Pedal out your feet if you need to. Get yourself situated. Take a breath in together. A breath out together. Move forward, feet to hands. Halfway lift. Lengthen. Fold down. Chair pose. Sit down nice and deep. Tailbone back. Hip creases back. Now toes light and lifted on the mat to keep all that weight shifting to the back edge of your mat. Hands to heart, twist left. You choose the arm position. Palms together, arms apart, and whether or not the bottom arms between your knees are on the outside. Stay here for 5, 4, tailbone back, 3, good, 2, 1, forward fold. Gorilla this time. Step on your palms, toes all the way up to your wrists. You bend your knees as much as you need to do that. And then everybody at home and in studio, shake out your head yes and no. Let your neck be nice and long. Yeah. And once your head's settled, set your gaze right at the back edge of your mat so the back of your neck stays nice and long. Release your grip. You can take goddess squat again or move on to crow pose. If goddess squat feels like the right space to be in with your hands at your heart, great. If you want to move on to crow with your fingers spread super wide, the same principles apply, right? It's the pit of the belly, in and up still. That pelvis is nice and neutral, even in the crow pose. Gaze set to one spot. You're here for 3, for 2, 1. Step or jump back, low push-up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take a long breath in together. Big exhale out. Breath in. Breath out. One more, fill up. Exhale completely. Move forward, feet to hands. Halfway lift, keep that long flat back. Beautiful. Forward fold. Rise all the way up to standing. We'll take eagle pose. So you have 2 options with your balancing poses tonight. You can either take them on your back or take them against the wall, against something so you've got a little bit of resistance where your shoulder blades can touch and your hips can touch. So in studio, you can find a little wall space. At home, maybe it's a piece of furniture or maybe you're laying on the ground. So you've got some type of feedback, a physical thing that's touching your shoulders and your hips. Okay, so eagle pose from here, right arm under, right leg over. If you're on the ground, you want the back of your pelvis to touch the floor. So it'll take lifting the front of your pelvis to make that connection. If you're against the wall, same action. Shoulder blades touch the wall, top of your pelvis right on the back, below your spine. Let that touch the wall, press it into the wall. Yeah, it's a different sensation when you've got something to touch and give you a little feedback on where your hips and shoulders are in space. Good. One more breath wherever you are. And then switch sides. Eagle. Left arm under, left leg over. Whether you're on the floor, your back is against the wall. Once you've got your foot adjusted, the back points of your hips, both of your shoulders, those 4 points right into the wall, right into the floor. Front of the pelvis lifts up so your low back can touch the surface. Good. Right side eagle, second set. Same idea. Now you know where you're headed, so you can just fine tune, lifting the front of the pelvis, making a long, broad space for your low back. Good adjustments. Yeah, and when you're trying on the poses in different ways, it really gives you the opportunity to fine tune things. So whenever you take the pose again later, you're like, ah, yes, I have something to play around with here. Switch sides, left side eagle, last one. Left arm under, left leg over. Let that surface, the wall or the floor, give you some feedback. Make both shoulders and both hips touch the surface. Standing leg raises next. So you've got your right hand on your right knee. If you're on the floor, that's totally fine. Keep your back on the floor. Right leg is in the air, left hand is on your hips. So you're still getting the feedback of both hips touching and both shoulders touching a surface. Just stay right here in center to start. So if you're laying on your back, turn your left toes to face up toward the ceiling as if that foot was standing on the floor. If you're leaning into the wall, long, straight standing leg. Now take your leg out to the right. Reach and look to the left. If you're on the wall, press both of those shoulders straight back. Yeah, the right shoulder will try and sneak forward. Pull it back. If you're on the floor, right shoulder down to the floor. Come back to center. Place that foot down. Left leg, standing leg raise. If you're on the floor, left leg is up in the air. If you're against the wall, you've got your knee or your foot in your hand. Shoulders and both hips straight back into the wall. Open it up to the left. Reach and look to the right. Completely different pose when you've got to keep the hips and the shoulders touching one surface. Come back to center. Place the foot back down. Tree pose is the last balancing pose we'll do this way. So on the floor or against the wall, right foot can come like a kickstand on your calf or all the way up on your thigh. Yeah, there's plenty of wall space over there for you, Kim. It's a little narrow right there on that wall. Okay. And Jesse, you read my mind. We're going to take cactus arms here. So bend your elbows and press your arms straight back into your surface, whether that's the floor or the wall. Elbows bent, shoulders straight back. And now that you've got your shoulders straight back, your elbows, backs of your hands are touching the wall or the floor, are your ribs popping out in front? Can you pull them back together? Ooh, that was a lot, Emily. I saw that. Huge shift. Can you keep the front ribs right in the center of your torso in and have the shoulders touch the wall or the floor at the same time? You've got one more breath here. Switch sides. Left side tree. Anywhere but the side of the knee is a good place for the foot. And then once you're settled and balanced, cactus arms. You've got the cactus arms. You've got the piece of the front ribs into center. And once you've got those two pieces working, check in with your low back. Is that whole bony plate at the bottom of your spine touching the surface you're against, or has it peeled away now? So many different things to pay attention to. Just keep going through it. Shoulders back, front ribs in. Back of the pelvis right against the wall. One more breath. Both feet to the floor. Come back onto your mat if you're up against the wall. Come up to standing if you're on your back. Extended mountain. Reach your hands up to the ceiling. Stretch out long. Forward fold. Halfway lift. Lengthen your spine. Tailbone straight back. High to low push-up. Upward facing dog or cobra. Downward facing dog. Press back. Take a full breath in. Big exhale. 2 more. Breathe in. Breath out. Last one. Exhale completely. Right side triangle. Step your right foot between your hands. Choose a really wide, long base in your triangle. So almost your whole mat, even if you feel like your legs are short and you're like, yeah, but not me. Yes, also you. You can have your right hand down to your shin or on a block outside your shin. Now we've got a couple of things going on with the pelvis, and it's a little trickier to neutralize it in the triangle pose because you have one hip that's closed, that's facing straight forward, and the other one with the leg rotating towards the front of your mat. So even here, tailbone to the back edge of your mat, front of the pelvis up towards your belly button. So you can play around with that a little bit. Tailbone to the back edge of your mat, front of the pelvis up towards your belly button. Nice, Jeanette. Super common in triangle to kind of have your butt sticking out behind you a little bit so the front of your pelvis is spilling forward. Tailbone to the back edge of your mat instead of back behind you. Nice adjustments. All these moving and shifting and no, that's not quite it. And maybe this is it. Yeah, just keep playing with it. And press into your feet. Rise all the way up to standing. Wide facing wide leg fold. Turn both of your feet to face the long edge of your mat. Hands on your hips. Hinge forward. So you can have your hands on the floor. You can have them on a block if that's a more comfortable place for them to be. Tailbone up to the sky, and you've got 2 options with this fold. You can walk your hands back between your feet and let the crown of your head come down that way, Or walk your hands out in front and stretch from your fingertips up and out through your tailbone. So you pick the one that feels like my spine is the longest if I choose this variation. Do that one. Soften your knees a bit so you can tip your tailbone up higher. Nice, Tori. You've got a little more room to work with now. You've been working really hard and focused on the pelvis. So tailbone up to the ceiling. Pit of the belly in towards the spine. Nice, Allison. Press into your feet. Rise all the way up to standing. Namaste, front facing forward fold. Turn both feet to face the front edge of your mat. Little baby warrior one stance. And have hand to elbow behind your back. Just right at your low back so you can squeeze your shoulder blades together. As you hinge forward, make it so that you're like trying to hook your chin on your front big toe. You stretch out your spine as long as it'll go. Keep that bind. Hand to elbow behind your back. And then when you fold it as far as you're going to go, squeeze your shoulder blades together on your back again. Yes, there it is. Now let's play around with your pelvis here while your legs are talking to you and your upper back is talking to you. Tailbone straight back. And then for most of you, pull the right hip back 2 inches. Yes, good adjustments. So that'll shift the stretch more into your hamstring and neutralize the pelvis at the same time. Keep your pelvis exactly where it is. Left hand down, right arm straight out for twisting triangle. Left arm down, right arm straight out. Ring out past the long edge of your mat. Your heart wide open to the side of the room. Beautiful. So if it feels like your hips are starting to swing the way that you're looking, just pull them straight back behind you. Re-neutralize that pelvis. Take one more breath here. Stay for the whole exhale and twist. High to low push-up. Hands to the mat.
Oh my gosh.
Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Take one breath in together. Big exhale out. Left side triangle pose. Step your left foot between your hands. Start from the ground and work your way up. Your feet, your shins, past your knees and into your thighs. And once you've got the shape of the pose, you can do the fine tuning on the pelvis. Tailbone to the back edge of your mat. Instead of back behind you, straight to the back edge of the mat, front of the pelvis up towards your belly button. I know at least for me, when I'm making that adjustment, it makes me feel like, oh, if I squeeze my butt cheek, like I can kind of see if you can do it without squeezing your butt cheek, because you'll have more space if you do that. When it's clenched in, it kind of makes it hard for those hips to rotate and the pelvis to neutralize. Front of the pelvis up toward the belly button. Good. Press into your feet. Rise up to standing. Side facing wide leg fold. Both feet to the long edge of your mat. We'll take a bind on this side. So you can bind your hands at your low back or put a towel or strap between your hands. And hinge forward. Add more breath here. Longer inhales, longer exhales in a way that your exhales can settle your feet down into the floor. Stable and grounded. Lots of high tailbones at this point. I like it. If you're feeling a little bit of stuckness or stiffness in the backs of your legs, bend your knees more than you think to give yourself room, and then tip the tailbone up a little higher. You got to give a little somewhere to get some more somewhere else. Release your hands down, rise all the way up. Namaste, front facing fold. Both feet to face the front edge of the mat. Hand to elbow behind your back. Preferably opposite forearm on top, but if you have no idea which one it was, that doesn't matter all that much. Hinge forward. Super long spine as you fold. Piece by piece, build the pose. Squeeze the shoulder blades together on your back. Now it's the left hip that'll have snuck forward a little bit to take you out of the hamstring stretch. Good. Left hip comes back. Hips nice and square. Keep them nice and square. Twisting triangle. Right arm down to the block or to your water bottle. Left arm straight out from your shoulder. As you twist, see if you can keep it just the torso that's twisting past the long edge of your mat. Your hips, your pelvis stay exactly where they are. Good adjustments. One more breath here together. Stay for the whole exhale. Twist it all the way out, then high to low push-up. Upward facing dog or cobra. Downward facing dog, press back. Now feels like another good place for a sigh. So take a deep breath in together. Yeah, breathe in. One more. Empty. Roll out to your high plank, shoulders stacked right on top of your wrists. You can keep your knees in the air or lower them to the mat and keep the plank in the upper body. Slow as you can, lower all the way to the floor. Front of the pelvis stays up towards the belly button. Nice. Set up for locust pose. Hands back by your hips, palms facing the floor. Don't rise off the floor just yet. Palms back by your hips. Lift the front of the pelvis up to the belly button here. Yes. So there'll be a spreading and expanding across your low back. Keep that intact. Then rise up. Lift your chest and your shoulders. If you're coming up away from the floor so far that you're losing that front of the pelvis, come down a little lower and lift the front of the pelvis again so you can make more space. Good. Pull it in and up. The whole front line of your body, super long. For one more breath, lower down. Turn one cheek to the mat. Rock your hips out left and right. That same action, locust number 2. Hands can stay by your hips or you can interlace them at your low back. Lift the front of the pelvis first and send your tailbone the same direction your heels are going. Rise up, locust pose. Slight tuck to your chin so your neck can be long and part of your spine. Yes. Beautiful. Heels to crown, long as you can get with the front of the pelvis lifted up. One more breath. Lower down. Hips left and right. Floor bow, but we'll do one leg at a time so that you can pay attention to the stretch across the front of your hip. So grab the right ankle with your right hand and bring the left arm across the front of your mat. Up right out in front with a bent elbow so you can press into that forearm and lift your chest up off the floor. There you go. Rise up. Floor bow on the right side. Press into the floor with the forearm. Press back with your shin. See if you can press back far enough to stretch the front of your hip, just like we were doing in the crescent lunge with the knee on the ground. Yes. Good. One more breath here. Lower down. Windshield wiper the legs left and right. Floor bow number 2. Time for the left leg. Left knee straight back behind you so the line is as long as possible. Right arm across the front of your mat. Rise up. Shin straight back. Press back enough. Your knee might come off the ground. The left knee might come off the ground as you stretch the front of your hip right up into the front side of your body. Nice work, Tori. Up and away from the floor. One more breath. Lower down, side to side. Palms by your lowest ribs. Upward facing dog. Rise up off the mat. Downward facing dog. Press up and back. Make your way through to sit and come onto your back for bridge pose. On back, bridge pose. So bent knees, flat feet on the floor, and then heels just close enough that you can barely touch them with your fingertips. Press down and rise up. Here's another tricky place to pay attention to the pelvis. Does it feel like your low back is crowded, or can you lift the front of your pelvis and use your abdominal muscles to make the line, the front line of your body as long as possible? From your chin to your knees, tailbone reaches the same direction that your knees are going here. One more breath in. Lower down, knees side to side. Bridge number 2, press into your feet, rise up. Hands can be bound at your low back or in cactus arms here. Either one is great. Then make those adjustments. The front of the pelvis up to the belly button. Tailbone goes the way your knees are going. Such a perfect view, Allison. Squeeze your inner thighs together a little bit more. Yes. One more breath in. Lower down. Knees side to side. So you can play with the pelvis in bridge pose, or you can move on to wheel. We'll take 3 wheels tonight. So wheel number 1, tuck your fingertips under your shoulders, press down, rise up, bridges, press into your feet, press into your shoulders, rise up and away from the mat. Front of the pelvis, up to the belly button, pull it in and up, then tuck your chin and lower down. Breathe in together, full breath out. Number 2, go with bridge or move onto your second wheel, up and away from the floor. Can you keep the space in your low back that you've been building the whole practice? Lower down, full breath, big exhale. Last one, last big back bend. Choose bridge or choose wheel, up and away from the floor. Stay here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower down. Supta Baddha. Press the soles to touch again. Knees open wide. So check in with how this Supta Baddha feels different from the one you took in the beginning of practice. Is there more room for you to neutralize the pelvis here? Does it feel like you can get more of your back on the mat? Happy baby or dead bug. Soles of the feet up to the sky. You can grab the edges of your feet or the backs of your thighs. Both of those work. Choose the variation that allows you to get your whole back and the back bony plate of your pelvis on the floor at once. Good. Legs up to the sky. We'll do 30-60 leg lifts. You can have your hands underneath your hips for more support. Before you go anywhere, pull the pit of your belly down to the mat. Make it touch the floor best you can. Lower your right leg about halfway down to the floor. For some of you, it might be a little bit higher than that because you want the low back to stay in touch with the floor. Take a deep breath in here. Exhale, switch your legs. Breath in. Exhale, switch. Keep going with your breath. Make the switch happen on the exhale so you can keep your low back and your low belly pinned down to the floor. Keep going for 10, 9, 8. All of the attention on the low back. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Legs straight up. Knees into your chest. Give them a squeeze. Rock forward and back a few times. Come up into boat pose, but start with your feet on the floor, your heels on the floor, and then your hands back behind you. So for some of you, it'll be flat palms. For others, it might be templed fingertips on the floor. I want you to be leaning back far enough that you've still got that long spine and the front of the pelvis is pulled up to your belly button, and you can feel those low belly muscles kicking on, your inner thigh muscles kicking on. Once you've got that space, if you can maintain that and reach your arms out in front, great. If you need the support of your hands, keep them back there. Pit of the belly in and up. Yep, inner thighs squeeze together. Maybe your feet come off the ground, but if you start to lose and around your back and pull it out of your low belly, heels back on the mat. Wherever you are, you've got this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Downward facing dog. Building up that neutral pelvis, folks. Downward facing dog. Right side lizard lunge. Step your right foot on the outside of your right hand. Arms come on the inside of that right leg. So your hands can be on the floor. They can be up on a block as well if you need a little extra height. And then back knee can be off the floor or on the floor, up to you. I like to keep my toes tucked in back so it keeps the knee a little bit engaged, just a little less pressure on the mat that way if it feels like your knee's getting a lot of pressure. Okay, so for this lizard, squeeze the side of your right knee into your right shoulder, right here in center. And then notice, is the front of your pelvis hanging down towards the floor? Can you scoop that in and up again? As you do that, it'll start to increase the stretch across the front of your left thigh again. Long, steady breaths. You're going to be here for a couple of breaths to let things stretch out and open up. Yeah, long inhales, long exhales. Give your muscles the opportunity to open and stretch. Hands stay where they are. Let your right knee drop out toward the right. Maybe you put your right palm in the middle of your right thigh to help open up the hip. So not on the side of the knee, but right in the middle of your thigh. Let that knee drop out to the side. And again, as the bones of your hips are coming closer to the floor, can you lift the front of your pelvis up a little bit more? Yeah, that balance between doing some work and letting there be ease at the same time. Good. Downward facing dog. Shake it out. Move it around. Notice the difference between your hips, the difference between your inner thighs going on here. Right side half pigeon. Right knee to right wrist. Right knee to right wrist. So it's a little bit more warmed up now. Right side half pigeon. Or you can take this pose on your back as well and hug your shin in towards your chest. Give your forehead a place to rest, either on a block or on a towel. Maybe it's on stacked fists. Block underneath the right hip is a super helpful tool to maintain that neutral pelvis here in your half pigeon. So you just check in. The way that you'll be able to check in with a neutral pelvis here in half pigeon is, are both of my thighs equidistant from the floor? If one of the hips is hiked up in the air and the other one's touching the ground, can you balance that out a little bit? So even though you're not looking at your pelvis or your hips, you can feel where they are in space and kind of fine tune where the pose is. Nice, Marie. See if you can stick your tailbone out behind you a little bit more, just the tailbone. Yes, just a little bit. Yeah, I'm starting to see there's a little bit more space in your low back now. Keep working that tailbone straight back instead of scooping under. A few more breaths here in your half pigeon. And downward facing dog, shake it out. Wiggle out your hips, take some ankle circles, whatever it takes. Left side lizard lunge, left foot on the outside of your left wrist. Then you make your adjustments on where you need to have your hands, whether that's on a block or on the floor, and how far back you need to scoot that right knee until you find the stretch across the front of your hip. And if you're looking at that left leg and your left knee is ahead of your left ankle, scoot the left foot forward so that they're stacked one on top of the other. You start with the knee hugged to the side of the shoulder. Front of the pelvis, right up towards your belly button. Let your left knee drop out to the left, and maybe you've got your left hand on your left thigh. So if you're pretty bendy flexy, resist the urge to let your whole hips and everything just kind of dip down towards the floor. Lift the front of your pelvis to keep the stretch across the front of your right thigh. Downward facing dog, shake that out.
Ah.
2 happy hips instead of just 1. Left side half pigeon, left knee to left wrist. Could be a block underneath that left hip or underneath your forehead. Could be both if you've got 2 blocks. Then put your attention on the hips and the pelvis. Get that as neutral as possible. You've been fine-tuning it in almost every single pose so far, so you've got more of a closer looking and attention to detail on what neutral feels like. What it feels like to get both of your hips evenly facing the floor. Long, steady inhales and exhales. Keep that going. As the pose is working open the space in your hip, there's also the opportunity for you to open up other spaces as well. So if you're clenching your jaw, let there be space there. If you've got some tension across the top of your shoulders, let there be space there. Super long spine, neutral pelvis. One more breath in. Full exhale out. Downward facing dog. Shake it out. Make your way through to sit. Come down onto your back for waterfall. So you can have a block underneath your low back or your back flat on the floor. It might be a little easier to access the back of the pelvis if you have your back flat on the floor versus on a block. But you do what feels like the best fit. Yeah, legs up the wall is a good way to go too. So in your waterfall, whether your legs are up the wall, you've got a block underneath, all these different variations, you can still tap into the back of your pelvis. Back of your pelvis onto the block. Front of the pelvis up towards your belly button. So if your back is flat on the floor, lifting the front of your pelvis will bring more of your low back down to the ground. So if you've got a super pronounced curve in your low back, it may not come down all the way, but there'll be a little more space there to work with. You can take some ankle circles or spread and scrunch your toes. Help coax the blood the opposite direction so your legs can drain out. Whole back of your pelvis on the block or on the floor. Few more breaths here. Let everything drain out. And hug your knees into your chest. Give them a squeeze. Drop your knees over to the right. Twist and look left. Supine twist. Yeah. So you may need to scoot that bottom hip a little further behind you so your hips are stacked. If your top knee is floating in space, that's totally fine. Just keep your attention on your shoulders being down on the floor. Supine twist, opposite way. That's that bottom hip that'll have to scoot back behind you a little bit so the hips are stacked one on top of the other. Shoulder blades down on the mat. Supta Baddha Konasana, our third and final Supta Baddha. Press the soles of your feet together. Tap into that space in your low back, the space with the neutral pelvis, the front of the pelvis up, back of the pelvis down on the mat. Shavasana. If you're in studio, there's a cold eye towel by the upper corner of your mat, so you just let your legs go out nice and long, arms out nice and long. And since you spent so much attention on the pelvis, maybe there's something to be done about it here, or maybe you've done enough work and you're like, yeah, just Shavasana. We're just going to see what happens here in Shavasana. So take a long breath in together. Fill yourself up and up and up. Exhale it all out. Let your entire body, including your pelvis, Rest easy on your mat. Deepen your breath. Bring some movement back into your hands and your feet. And plant your feet on the floor and rock onto your right side. With your eyes still closed, press down and rise up. Take a comfortable seat. Inhale, reach your hands overhead. Exhale, thumbs to heart center. We'll finish our practice together with 3 final ohms. Take a deep breath in. Deep breath in. Exhale out. Thumb knuckles to forehead center. Thank you all so much. Coming into the studio, signing in virtually, and putting all of that attention on your pelvis. Namaste. Good work, everybody. Good stuff. So if anybody has any questions at all, let me know. I'll be floating around the studio. It was awesome to finally get to teach you guys. A lot of the time I just see you at the front desk and then Philomena takes you in here and then I'm gone for the rest of the night. So it was a pleasant change of pace. Have an awesome rest of your night.
Thanks, Meg.